So I'm here with Matthew Kreke. Matthew's a writer and creator, and really happy to have him on the show. I'm sure we'll talk about some great stuff. So Matthew, how you doing?
Oh, okay. It's a little hot in here,
Okay, yeah.
but
Where
I'm.
are you located?
It's a town called Watson, Illinois. It's pretty much the middle of nowhere, to be honest.
Okay, yeah.
The
Meanwhile,
club
like, I am in New York. Yeah.
is called Mattoon, and even that's not a major city.
Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm in New York, right, like in the middle of the World Trade Center, so kind of like in the busiest, like one of the busiest parts of the country,
Yeah.
basically. So Matthew, so tell me a little bit. So with any writer, we always want to kind of get an idea. Well, any creator really, we want to get an idea of like your own origin story as a creator. So,
Look,
what got you into writing and being creative, and then also wanting to kind of express that to people and give it to the world?
I'm not sure how I came from having ideas to actually wanting to publish them, but I know that my first few things where I tried to make stories was in high school. I started writing little short stories in high school just for my own amusement and the amusement somewhat of my teachers and classmates, I guess, but really never thought any of them would make anything. And then somehow or another, I think I heard about Aragon and how the guy who made that was just a teenager when he wrote it. So I thought, well, maybe I could write something that I can actually publish. And my first story was basically a combination of Aragon and Star Trek. And I gave up on it pretty quickly. And then, I don't know, I got into video game development in college, but I realized to do that professionally, you gotta have a lot of money and a lot more patience than I had, to be honest. I eventually gave up on my prototype when I realized it wasn't as good as I thought it was on the video game, and then years later, I came up with this superhero video game idea based on Infamous, loosely, but it would also be based loosely on Superman's origin. And long story short, I gave up on that, but I ended up turning it into a book, Beacon, the Hero of Heartland. And yeah, that started actually selling. I've sold about 200 copies of that.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about that process. Like, what made you decide to transition to writing a book? And did you have a creative writing background? Like, were you coming from a place of like having a background in creative writing and really getting into it, or did you have to kind of learn that process of putting something like that together?
Honestly, I didn't have very much in the way of proper education for writing. Like I said, I went to school for programming and game development.
Yeah.
I did have one class in writing in college, but it was more for the real world stuff.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I remember take certain issues in the news and try to make an argument whether the news reporter is right or wrong was one of the things I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, no real fictional education for writing.
So how did you educate how were you able to develop that skill? Or did you just do it and see what
until I figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
To be honest, self-learning. Also watched a ton of YouTube tutorials on how to write. And, well, I also did something called pantsing, which is where you just write things until, I'm saying this wrong, where you just write whatever comes to your mind and then edit it tomorrow. My biggest problem early on was I would write a sentence, say, think about it, go, that's stupid, and delete it immediately. Eventually, I had to learn to shut that part of me off.
Yeah.
And learn to edit it.
So if somebody was coming up to you that's an aspiring writer, are there any tools or techniques or skills that you'd say, like, you need to work on this thing before you go out and kind of work on your first published book?
I really don't know if there is any tool for but I do know that if you want to get anywhere in the publishing world, you're going to have to probably sign up for some service that will allow you to give away a prequel to your book or some sort of short story free in exchange for you get their email. That's
Yeah.
what I did. That's how I managed to get all the sales I got.
Yeah.
Most of my fans bought the book after I gave them a free copy on a service called Story Origin of the prequel, not the real book.
Got it.
But yeah,
Nice.
I would
So
definitely
you use that to kind of collect emails to then use as part of your mailing list to generate leads. Yeah. And so you found that to be effective.
Yes, I have over 200 people on my mailing list still.
Yeah, that's great. Do you do like a monthly newsletter, or do you do anything to kind of cultivate that list?
Like every third of a month, I update my fans on what's going on, a little bit of what's going on, but I'll be honest, I very rarely figure out what to say. I just share other people's books and say, here, if you like my book, here's some books that are either on sale or free that you might be interested in looking at.
Yeah. So now, before we get into... Yeah.
Sometimes I do tell little news clippings from the world of the book.
Yeah.
Like headline stories from the book as if the world was real. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, that's great. Especially if this is going to fans, that's an awesome way to kind of work with your fan base.
Yeah. And every once in a while, every once in a while I do send out a form, but those aren't very effective so far.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, it's all a process of learning, like, what works, what doesn't, what keeps people engaged. Now, let me ask you, before we get into your comic, I did want to talk a little bit about your first book. So tell me about, what is Beacon, Hero of the Heartland? What's it about? And why should somebody, that's listening to this go out and buy it?
First off, it's not Beacon Hero of the Heartland. It's Beacon the Hero of Heartland.
Oh, Heartland. Okay. My mistake.
Anyway, point being, it is a sort of telling of a story like Superman, but diluted, and I don't know, my own take on it. Basically, the story is about a character who is like Superman, and she's never failed before, and then one day, the villain defeats her and nearly kills her, and kills someone that's close to her. Now she's devastated, and she retires. And then, a while later, I don't know how long later, really, I don't remember, but the government finds her blood, studies it, creates a clone of herself. The clone begins to have a mental breakdown and becomes homicidal, goes on a vendetta-fueled rampage, and the real Beacon realizes she's the only one who can possibly stop this clone.
Got it. And so that's where the story takes place for the
that's
first
the
book.
main part of it.
Nice. That sounds good. I like stories. I'm a fan of stories where you do take something familiar like Superman and take your own take on it, because I like that idea of the world looks familiar, so you're able to get into it with understanding kind of what broadly that world's going to feel like, and then you take people on a ride that they don't expect, or a different ride. But I definitely like that kind of setting. So now, what got you into writing comics?
Sure, whatever possessed me to do this comic. I know it started out with a desire to do a radio drama or some sort of movie, but then I started thinking getting actors is really hard, So started thinking about all these things I had around the house, like Legend of Zelda, the manga, Polsack the Night Stalker, the comic, and the Godzilla comics, and I thought, why not? And so here we have my first comic, prototype at least. And
so now, what was it? Was it that you had a story that you didn't want to tell in a prose form, and it ended up basically being a comic? Was that basically what happened? Like, you kind of had this story? Yep.
I think what it was too short to actually be a book, but it was also such a cool idea, I thought, but I couldn't just get rid of it. You know?
So tell me the process like for you. So you, when we were talking earlier, you said, you can't draw a straight line. I'm in the same boat. For you, what was the process like finding an artist, finding the right artist, and kind of collaborators to work on this project?
Okay, that's a complicated story. It all started, let's see, I'm drawing a blank, but, oh yeah, it all started when I found this guy. I was looking through Facebook, found this guy who is apparently local, who drew a whole bunch of black and white pictures that I thought were really cool. And then he drew a picture of a fairy, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly the art style I want. I tried to hire him. He didn't want anything to do with it. Thought it would take too much time. So I more or less took his picture off the internet, went up to my friend who I met through a video game tabletop game convention I run called EffingCon, and who this friend of mine runs video or makes tabletop games and card games. And I said, well, would you be able to help me got this picture of what I want this comic to basically look like? Do you have any artists who could basically draw in this art style? And he said, yes, I do. And he's kind of between jobs. I can have him read your script if you got one. And I sent him my script, and yeah, it ended up pretty good.
Great, that's awesome. Yeah, especially
style, which I didn't expect.
Yeah,
but it's good.
Yeah, and that's cool to find somebody that that to have that vision of and the style that you want, and then be able to still get somebody is great, because that can be difficult, and sometimes it's hard finding the right artist. So now I guess another question I have, going back to writing, I do want to ask a bit more about this book and what it entails. But what have you found to be some of the differences between writing prose and writing comics? Because it's one big challenge. So like, what's the, are the challenge, maybe what
is, I've never heard the word before.
Sorry. So what's the difference for you between writing a book, regular novel or novella, and writing a comic script? Like, what are the similarities and what are the differences for you? And were there any challenges that you faced in writing a comic script?
Well, I had to learn how to do that through a template I found. Yep. And yeah, it's got a lot of like headlines you gotta place in there, and well, it's kind of similar to a little movie script I wrote years ago, but never made that movie, by the way. But yeah, I knew a little bit of how to write a script from the movie I wrote.
Yeah,
but there were a lot of differences. I had to put headlines and caption in those braces. I really don't know how else to answer that.
Yeah.
I would just wing.
No, that's fair. Did you find it to be an easy transition to writing like a comic script?
Rather, more or less. The problem is when you writer's block.
Yeah, but that's true with anything, right? Like you get writer's block whether you're writing, a novel or whatever it is. So I guess tell me about the comic. What's the story? Are there any future editions or issues coming out, or is this kind of a one shot?
Well, it started out, like you asked, what is it actually about? Okay. I was going to give you a whole background on it, but okay, where was I? My apologies.
What's the comic about? Yeah, no problem.
What were we talking about?
But what's the comic about?
Oh, yes. Basically, it's kind of an adaptation of Supernatural, but imagine Supernatural if the characters were paid to kill monsters. Yeah, this first one is hopefully the first of many if the first one's popular enough.
Yeah.
As in, if it makes enough money to justify a sequel, I will make one. But the first one will be a retelling.
Yeah, no, sorry.
It's a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, the first issue.
Interesting.
Meet Supernatural.
Wow, that's a great pitch, right? Like they always say, like what's your elevator pitch, and that's Supernatural meets Rumpelstiltskin sounds cool. So now it's on Kickstarter currently, right?
Yes.
So what kinds of reward tiers do you have for it? Like how have you kind of what are you offering on the Kickstarter?
Well, right now we have, if you pledge at least $5, you get the digital copy and your name up in the credits if you want it. And everything above that, it gives you the name in the credits too if you want it. But our second tier is $10 for the physical copy and the digital copy. But until we get 50 people to sign up for this, we have a $7 version of the $10 tier, but the early bird special, we call it, where you can pay $7 and get the physical copy and digital copy. Then we have $20 to get a signature, get the physical copy, a digital copy, and a signature. We have one for the artist and one for me, the writer. And they're separate pledges. Or you can do the $30 tier, which is both our signatures, physical and digital copy. $80 for a custom trading card made by my artist of your favorite monster. Okay. And $100 you can get, I forget what was it, your favorite monster on a trading card, physical and digital copies, and the physical will be signed by both of us.
Nice. That's good. So nice. So now how have you found working with Kickstarter this is your first Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
How's that process been?
Well, it's been a kind of making me a nervous wreck because I'm at 24% and I was at almost 25%, started paying for ads, got -1 pledges from that so far.
Okay, yeah.
The only result is one person took away their $5 pledge.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
That's a frustration with Kickstarter. I think it's like you make a little progress, and then you'll have those days where like a couple people get rid of their pledges, and it's like, why would you do this? I mean, it can be a little frustrating. Yeah. But yeah, it's like just got to be persistent. And I find that like it's like that the challenge of Kickstarter, at least for me, the first time was just I didn't realize how much work day to day it was going to be. Like every day, posting and trying to reach out to people and make sure that you're out there. Like I'm not I'm not a salesman, and so it's kind of, but you have to become a salesman, right, with Kickstarter. Now, so you said, so have you written any other scripts for this story yet, or are you kind of waiting to see how things go before you start?
Maybe a fourth of a script for the sequel. Okay. But I'm not gonna finish it until I know that we're gonna either hit our goal or something near that. There's an audience for it,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes it's not even that there's not an audience, it's just getting, it's like, the process of just getting out there, that becomes such a challenge with any of this. So tell me about your tabletop convention.
Video game and tabletop game.
Video game and tabletop. Yeah, so tell me about that convention.
It's called EffingCon and happens November 1st and 2nd this year for the 4th time.
Okay.
We have celebrities, we have video game tournaments, tabletop game tournaments. We have a whole bunch of vendors, and it's pretty much the only video game or tabletop game event that happens in my hometown of Effingham, which is basically my hometown because, like I said, Watson is nothing but wilderness that we happen to live in. Don't know how it's supposed to explain it.
Yeah.
If we want to do something, we always go to Effingham.
Okay, got it.
They're my town. Even if we have to buy groceries, we have to go there.
Okay, wow. Well, yeah, so I definitely have interest. I might pick your brain at some point about tabletop because I'm working on a tabletop game kind of based on like the Western is about a bounty hunter, and I came up with an idea for a bounty hunting game that I've been working through the mechanics and stuff, and like thinking down the road, like once I figured all this stuff out and got prototypes together, how that would go. But so what? How many people do you typically have at your convention?
I'm not sure. But we try to measure it, but every year something goes on with our counting.
Okay, no, that's fair. But that's fun. So now on your
this year we're going to be selling tickets and hopefully keep an accurate count.
Yeah.
Every
Okay.
year something goes wrong that messes up our count.
Yeah. Now, are you bigger on the tabletop side or the video game? I'm guessing the video game end, right?
My expertise is video games, but
Yeah. Got it.
most of my clients are tabletop games.
Oh,
People.
interesting. Okay, got it. So now, what with your clients on the tabletop side? What do you do with them? Like, how do you
Well,
assist them?
they either sell things or they get to demo their game if they're making one.
Got it. Okay,
And
interesting. So there's
demo.
got it. Okay, wow.
As long
So
as
that's
I
cool.
don't sell anything.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you said when is the tabletop convention running again?
November 1st and 2nd. Video game and
Got it.
tabletop.
Awesome. So now, where can people find you on social media?
I believe it's called, I turned my Facebook into Matthew Kreke Author.
Okay.
I know I did that with YouTube, but I barely ever update my YouTube account.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to change that soon if I can get consistent days off from my job at Walmart, my day job.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
until then, you're probably better off reaching out to me at Facebook.
Got it. Yeah. And yeah, and we'll keep a link. Do you have a and we can also, if you have a link to your newsletter, we can absolutely post this in the comment, in the links on the podcast and on the YouTube channel for anyone that does want to join your monthly kind of and find out about your book and comics.
You want me to find the newsletter thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can. Yeah, that's fine. You can email that to me afterwards. That's totally fine.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, but otherwise, and so the best place for people is Facebook then.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Well, and then what's the name of your comic again? And how much longer is it on Kickstarter? Just to make sure anybody that is interested has a chance.
And let me check. I don't remember. It's 40 in a few days.
Okay, cool.
I believe.
All right, great. Well, Matthew, it was great to have you on the podcast. Thank so much.
Thank you.